Hi everyone, and welcome to Family Connect. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name's Lauren Redmond. I'm the National Project Coordinator for SDS with Enable Scotland. And tonight we are joined by Tracy Francis from ARC Scotland. So thank you, Tracy, for joining us this evening. So we're going to talk tonight about transitions. I would just like to remind all of you, Tracy, as much as she wishes she had a magic wand, and so do I, Tracy's not able to obviously solve individual issues right here, right now, so she's here to talk about transitions and how that should be a positive experience for young people. We want to hear about your own situations and your own experiences, but just to bear in mind, she doesn't have a magic wand to make everything better, unfortunately. But Tracy, over to you. Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to see you again.
It's lovely. It's lovely to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, boy, do I wish I had that magic wand because yeah, it would be solid gold.
Yeah.
Um, but I am happy. I'm going to spend probably 10, 15 minutes or thereabouts just going through, as Lauren said, a little bit about what a transition should look like and some of the things that should be part of that. We can talk after that, maybe a little bit about your own situations. I will do my best with any questions that you have. If I can't answer something, I'm more than happy to go away and look up a response and come back to you if that would be helpful. So really, it's pretty much your evening. I'm giving you a little bit of context to start off, but it's very much about what you want to take out of this and what you would like to talk about as well. So as Lauren said, my name's Tracy. I work with an organisation called ARC Scotland. ARC stands for Association for Real Change. And what we try to do is we don't actually do individual support services. We give people information, we provide training, we run workshops, we do this kind of thing. We actually have groups that we work with young people and also with parents and carers who we try and make part of the discussion around how things should be better. We're really there to try and improve services, improve policy, improve the way that things work, not just for transitions, but for services for people with disabilities and learning difficulties and additional support needs across the board. But I concentrate particularly, I specialise on transitions. And I've been working in Scottish young people's and children's charities, really, actually, it's coming up for 30 years. I did a count and I thought, oh my goodness, has it really been as long as that? In some ways, it feels as long as that. In other ways, it feels like it's just flown by. So I know the Scottish scene pretty well, and I've been focusing on transitions really for the last 10 years. 10, 12 years. And that's come about from personal experience because I've got a daughter who is now in her 20s who was diagnosed with autism. And I won't go into the full story. We might talk about it a little bit later if it's helpful, but just to give you an idea of, what our experience has been. She didn't complete school. She left school with no qualifications whatsoever. In fact, she dropped out at 14 and never actually went back to mainstream school. She's now in her 20s. She's come a long way. We've had a long family journey around that. And she's now in college, and she's also living independently, both of which I really couldn't see her doing. If you'd asked me when she was 15, 16, is that going to be a possibility? I would have said, no, no way. So, for anybody whose young people might be at that sort of stage, I like to start off by saying what you're seeing now is not necessarily, what you will be seeing in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, perhaps 20 years' time. But it can take, it's not a conventional journey, and it can take quite a long time to get to where you need to be. So I can speak from a parent's viewpoint as well. And I should just say, anything that I say about my daughter, that I share about our situation, it's with her permission. So she knows what I say in these events, and I don't say anything that she's not comfortable with other people knowing. So that's a little bit about me and, the background where I come from. I guess with the Scottish Transitions Forum, the work that we do around transitions, it's very much focusing on that group of young people from 14 to 25, 26. We know that there's transitions throughout life. We know that there's lots of transitions that take place. But this one, I've started referring to it as the big transition, because that's what they call it in Inverclyde. Somebody said that's what they like to refer to it as, just to separate it out from all of the other transitions that go on as well. So the big transition, the one that is actually around leaving school or moving on from school age into adult services, whether it's healthcare, social care, whatever it may be, education, into employment or into whatever, volunteering opportunities and things there might be. There's so much that's changing all at the same time. And I think it's I think that bit between, sort of 14 to 18, I would say is probably the hardest time. The hardest time. Once you get through that, it does start getting better. And it's not that there aren't organizations out there that can help you. Enable obviously does fantastic work. There's other organizations that can give you advice and support. But it's the difficulty is always finding the right people to speak to. And if you do find them, then it's gold dust. It actually makes all the difference. So what I'm going to start off by doing, I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay? Can everybody hear me all right? That's fine. Okay. If you want to, I should just say, actually, if you want to keep your cameras turned off, I can see that, a number of people have. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind. But that's entirely up to you. So I'm going to start off talking about what a good transition looks like, and I'm going to share my screen. It's just a very short presentation. It's definitely not death by PowerPoint, but let me just run through a couple of slides with you if I can do this. There we go. Let's have a look there. That's the one. Right. I hope everybody can see that.
Yeah, that's good, Tracy.
Yeah. See that. So I said I refer to it as the big transition because it is the one when so many things change all around about the same sort of time, and there's such a lot to have to think about. So there we go. What does a good transition look like? I tend to describe it to people a bit like a Rubik's Cube. You might have come across this image before, but if you haven't, it's a helpful way to think about it, because it's like transitions as a puzzle. And you're not dealing with just one face of the cube. What you're trying to do is to get all the faces of the cube sorted out. Everything needs to line up. And it could be, it's about thinking that, you're thinking about the bigger picture here. You're not just thinking about getting on to the next step with education or whatever it happens to be. What you're thinking about is the young person moving towards a life that they are going to find fulfilling? Are they going to be safe? Are they going to be safeguarded? Do you have the powers to support them and to go on supporting them if they need it in the areas of their life where they do need that? And are you working to build up their independence skills in the areas of life where they can support themselves? It's having the bigger picture in mind. And I think when we're dealing with services, so many services, there are some fantastic people out there, but they do very much tend to see things limited by their own service. And very often it's the parents and the carers who are seeing that bigger picture and trying to tie it all together. And you're also the ones who are, sort of caring for your young person as well. You're doing the day-to-day stuff of just being a parent and a carer and keeping things moving. So bearing in mind that what we're aiming for is to get all of those parts of the puzzle lined up. And it's fairly obvious when you stop to think about it, with so many aspects to get right, it's not going to happen quickly. It is going to be something that's over a period of time. And it can be very, it can feel so. One of the things I think that makes it feel really stressful when your young person is around about that time of leaving school or getting ready to finish school, is it can feel like there's so many decisions and things that you have to take all in a very short space of time, and your back's against the wall, you've got a deadline to work to, and people will try to make you feel that that is something that you have to be on top of. And to an extent, that's understandable, but it's also something that as a parent or a carer, it's actually okay just to take your foot off the gas sometimes, take a step back and go, you know what? I don't have to do everything right now. And I'll come on in a moment or two to some of the things that you probably need to prioritize if you haven't already. But because it's over a period of time, then things will fall into place at an appropriate time. And your young person may not be ready for things at the time that the services who are around think they should be. But in a couple of years' time, it might be the case that they've matured a little bit more, they've learned more skills, they've settled down, they're more comfortable in themselves, and they're ready to try something at perhaps 18, 19, that at 15, 16 would have been, you know, just anxiety provoking and not very helpful for them. So as a parent and a carer, in a way, while it's stressful and anxious for you as well, you're holding that space for your young person, and you're trying to let them feel that actually it's okay, within reason, to take the time that they need to take. And I think one of the biggest things that you can do is, or one of the best things that you can do rather, is just to try as much as you can not to rush that process. Because it's when it's rushing and when you're trying to get people to change faster than they're ready or faster than they can process, that's when a lot of the anxiety and those sort of stress issues can start to surface. So what does a good transition look like? It's not in a vacuum. There are laws around transition and what should be happening. There's also a lot of research, academic research, that's been done around what makes a good transition. And there's a lot of work that we at ARC and other organisations as well have done directly with parents and carers and young people to talk to them about what works for them. What do they say a good transition should look like? And what we've done is we've tried to pull all of that stuff together into 7 principles to make it easy for people to see what a good transition should involve. And when services are working with you, whether it doesn't matter which the service is, education, could be social services, could be another organisation, if they are following these 7 principles, then they're doing what the law requires them to do. And they're also doing what the government is asking them to do, which is to go just that little bit further to make sure that it's a good experience. So it's almost like what the law says is the base level, but what the Scottish Government has asked organisations to do is just to go that little bit further to try and make it do what they can to make sure that it's a good experience for people. And the 7 principles are a way of actually capturing what that involves. So the first one is planning and decision making should be carried out in a person-centred way. It should have the young person who's going through that transition at the heart of the process. They should be involved in the discussions, and I do know that obviously some young people find that more challenging than others. This is another reason why it can take longer to try and get their views, get them to understand as much as they can around what the options are and what's going on. But it should always be around that person and what they want their life to be like. It should also take into account the family, the individual family, because every family is different, the circumstances are different, the pressures are different. The transition planning process should be something that recognises that individuality. And support should be coordinated across services. Any service that is involved in supporting your young person has a duty to coordinate with the other services that are involved and to exchange information with your consent and with your young person's consent that are relevant to making sure that the transition goes smoothly. That is a statutory duty in law for the services. So they should be doing that. And if they're, and we do know, I should say, by the way, we do know that a lot of this in practice, people are struggling to make it happen in practice on the ground. But it's really important that you understand that when you're asking people questions about this, you're not asking unreasonable questions. You're entitled to expect that these things are things that people are trying to do as best they can. So support should be coordinated across services. Planning should start early, and it should continue to age 25. And the recommendation is that you start, when it says planning, that doesn't mean making decisions necessarily. It might mean starting to gather information. It might mean starting to talk to the young person to work out what their views are, especially if it's going to take a little bit longer to find out what they're thinking. So that process needs to start, we recommend at about age, maybe two years before the school leaving date. So usually about age 14 is a good time to start thinking about this and start getting information together, finding out what's available locally, talking to people who might be part of that transition process, thinking about who you need to be part of that transition planning process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. And then crucially, not only should it start early, in that year before leaving school, that's when some of the decisions need to be starting to be made, because school is going to be coming to an end. So something has to be in place or decided that actually gives the young person structure to their week and something to move on to. Now, it may be very often the option that people hear about is through college. But there are other options as well. And so the sooner you start finding out about those, the more chance you have of actually being able to make the decision that's right for your young person, or get another plan in place. Because if college is not going to work for them, that's fine. There's nothing that says that you have to do that. But it does mean that you're going to be starting to think about what else you could do instead. And so having those conversations, the sooner you start having that, the better. And then it's crucial that planning continues up to age 25. We do recommend that a transition plan, when there is one in place, the family should be aware of it, they should know what's in it, and there should be somebody to take that forward, so that even after they've left school, you still know who to go to if there's a problem with that, or if things need to change, or if your circumstances change and you need more support or less support. It's really important to recognise that planning needs to continue. All young people should get the support they need. That's around getting the support to take part in the process. So it might be asking for information in an easy read format, or it might be allowing a young person to record what their views are if they can't be present in a meeting, you know, perhaps recording their views using your mobile phone or something like that, so that their voices are heard in the process. They're actually taking part, even if they can't physically be there. But young people should get the support that they need to be part of this process, because it's about them, and what they think and how they feel about it is crucial. Young people, parents and carers must have access to the information they need. Local authorities and other organisations, but particularly local authorities, social services, have got a statutory duty to provide information to young people, parents and carers, even if the parents and the young person, if they're not eligible for a supported package going forward. So if you're not going to be getting funding from the local authority, you've still got you still should be able to get information about other agencies that can help you, other organisations that you can try and access support through. They should be working with you to be able to do that. It's recognising that families and carers specifically need support, because you know, looking after yourself and your own welfare and understanding the process is one of the best ways for the majority of families. It's one of the best ways for helping to support the young person most effectively, and being a really you know, sort of key part of that process, not just paying lip service, but actually being involved in that process. And then the last principle is a continued focus on transitions across Scotland. So that's trying to get local authorities and other organisations to recognise that it's a continual process of improvement. It's, you know, there's always something that you can do a little bit better. There's always something that you can learn from the people who are going the process now that is going to help people going through the process a little bit further down the line. So those are the 7 principles of good transitions. It's not rocket science. You'll be looking at that and going, well, yeah, it seems self-evident. But the whole point of it was to actually pull together all of those sort of threads around what makes a good transition, what the knowledge we have is, what the law says and everything, into a way that people can actually look at and go, okay, I can see now how that might work out in practice. Or we do, as I say, recognise that unfortunately, far too often, people are really, really struggling to see these principles applied in their own situations. But I think sometimes, as I say, it can really help to feel that the questions you're asking are reasonable questions to ask. You're not asking for, you know, the moon. You're asking for something that the law says you should have, and that good practice says you should be entitled to. So it's useful to be aware of those. I said I would say a little bit about what you need to prioritise, because there's so much going on around the time of transition. And I think I've come up with 5 things specifically. The first one is information, gathering that information, be a real sticky beak. So you need to be quite careful, because not all information is applicable to Scotland. Not all information might be relevant to your circumstances. So the more you can speak to other parents, other carers through forums like this. The more you can be involved with organisations that can actually, can just kind of use as a bit of a sounding board. Is this something that could apply to me? The better, and the longer time that you have available to do that, that can be really, really helpful. There is a website that we recommend that's called Talking About Tomorrow. I can give you the link to that a little bit later on in this evening, but that has been put together specifically for parents and carers in Scotland by parents and carers in Scotland, and it's got a lot of information about the transition process, the things you need to think about, links for further information and so on. And I would definitely recommend that you have a look at that if you haven't already. So information, spending time gathering your information is like your bottom line. That's where you start. And preparation and planning, absolutely fundamental. And by that, the preparation, that's partly getting yourself ready to take part in that process and getting your young person ready to take part in that process, having the discussion with them. And I know that's not going to be one conversation. That's going to be something that could be spread out over 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. It might be 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there over dinner, something like that. But over time, consciously try to work with your young person to get them to understand that change is on its way, and to try and find out what they feel about that. How do they feel about it? Do they feel stressed? What could you do to help? All of that preparation can actually do a lot to make it an easier process. It's not going to take away all the stress, but it is going to help you support them, and it's going to help you understand where some of the difficulties and perhaps some of the resistance is going to come from. And then the planning, once things start going in, things start happening, planning again is crucial, because otherwise you're just reacting to things that are coming down the line at you. To start feeling that you have a little bit more control over the process, then having a plan is really important. And if the school or whatever other setting you're in is not managing to come up with a plan that you think is appropriate, there is nothing to stop you starting informally to put together your own plan. You don't have to wait for someone else to come and do that. A lot of the school planning meetings happen in that last year before the school leaving date. And some of them, unfortunately, we're hearing more, are just actually even not happening at all. So, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a plan at all. As a parent, you're very well placed to be able to put something together for your young person. And that Talking About Tomorrow website has got a section on planning and some of the things to take into account if you find yourself in that situation. And it can be really useful, even if you have got a plan through the school. After the young person's left school, maybe they're into the late teens, early 20s, at that point, it can be a little bit harder to access planning as well. So again, you might find yourself further down the line having to come up with your own plan at some point. So being aware of what goes into putting that together is a really important thing, I think. These are the two things that it's worth prioritizing, and just because they are so important. Safeguarding, that's guardianship and its power of attorney. And I think there may be people on the call who already know about this. You might have heard about this. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details. We can talk about it in a few minutes if you want to. But when a young person turns 16 in Scotland, they're legally responsible for managing their own affairs, unless there is an alternative arrangement in place. If they don't have capacity, if they're not able to do that for themselves, then there needs to be somebody in place who has guardianship to be able to speak for them, to make decisions on their behalf, and to support them in the decisions that they take. So if you haven't already started that process of looking into guardianship, or power of attorney, but we'll talk about guardianship at the moment, then that's probably something that you need to prioritise, finding out about that and what's involved in that, because that can be quite a long process in itself, but it's such an important one because it's about keeping your young person as safe as you can keep them. And then the second one is money, because how things are paid for, benefits and finance, that's such a big area. And it's really important that you have up-to-date information about that, because they change so much. And certainly, again, they will change at age 16. What someone is eligible for before age 16 can change. It's also the case that a lot of benefits now are moving from, they used to be managed by the Department of Work of Work and Pensions in London, and they're now managed by Social Security Scotland in Scotland. And so there can be differences now from even just last year or 2 years ago. It might be a different landscape now. So there are organisations, Citizens Advice Bureau is one. I think Enable can probably give you help with this as well. A lot of the carers organisations can. If you Google your local carers organisation, they very often have advice around this. To go through and do a bit of a financial health check, look at your finances, it's all confidential, but look at your finances and your young person's finances and your family circumstances, and just make sure that you're getting the entitlements that you should be getting, because how things are paid for, especially once schools come to an end, and how support is paid for, it's really important to get that right. And then the last one, it's looking after yourself. And it's that thing that as parents and carers, we forget. Because we're focusing on a young person, we're focusing on helping them through the transition process. But, you know, it is that saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. You've got to find ways of looking after yourself, even if they're just small ways. So it might be connecting in with a carers organisation. It might be connecting in with other parent networks or something like that. But getting something that is for you, that gives you the bit of just that little bit of space. It might just be having a cup of tea at the bottom of the garden once a day, something like that. But make it something that is meaningful for you, and make that a priority if you can. So very quickly then, I'm just going to run through the last couple of slides. This is just to make you aware of some of the resources that ARC has that might be of interest to you. This is something that we're launching very soon. We were hoping to launch it in April. For reasons that are outside our control, it's going to be another month or so before this is available to you. But it's a digital transitions planning tool. And there's a version that's aimed at young people, there's a version for parents and carers, and there's a version that's aimed for professionals. And all the stuff I'm talking about today is included in this, all the information is included in it. But the other thing that the young people's tool and the parent and carer tool does is it's very much tailored to the individual who's using it. When you go on board and you start signing up for an account, it will ask you quite a lot of questions about your young person, and then it uses that information to come up with the information and the advice that will lead you through the transitions process, the transitions planning process, so that you're not getting everything all at once and then it's left to you to try and sort out what you should be prioritizing. It's there to help you go through it step by step in a manageable kind of a way. So if that's something that you would be interested in, we have a webinar on our website that it introduces this and talks about how it works for the young people and for the parents and carers. You'd be very welcome to go and have a look at that, or just get in touch with me. You'll get my email at the end, and you can ask me some more about that if you would like to. We also have a group of young people and also parents and carers. We have a parent and carer network, and we have a young people's group called the Divergent Influencers. And we have a group of people who are using their experience to try and help other parents and carers, other families, but also to work with government, to work with local authorities to make things better. One of the things that we're doing at the moment, we've got a new course that we're about to launch called Learning to Let Go. And it's being run by 2 parents and 2 young people directly from their experience of learning new skills, taking risks, you know, how you get your young person ready to do that, how you get yourself ready to be able to let them go out and try something new for the first time. So we're launching that for the first time in May. We've done a couple of pilots of that. And we think that's something that people will probably find quite helpful, especially as young people, you know, they're getting a bit older, they want to do things more independently, they want a little bit more control over their own lives. How do we let them do that and still keep them safe? The website, I will send these slides after this evening. I'll send them to you, Lauren, and you're very welcome to send them around. The links will be live in the slides that you get. You'll be able to click onto them and they'll take you through to you know, the areas that we're talking about. But on the Scottish Transitions Forum website, we've got a lot of webinars. We've got webinars around guardianship, around finance, around all sorts of things that are relevant to transition. So in terms of, you know, collecting information, some of those might be useful to you. It's good to know that they're there. We've also got a YouTube channel. This was a conference that we did last year, actually, but it was done by young people and parents and carers talking about their experience of transitions. They were talking about, you know, how you use your rights, what are your entitlements, thinking out of the box, ways to help your young people develop new skills. There's a whole host of things there, and they're talking directly from their own experiences around that. If that's interesting to you, you know, by all means go and have a look at that, because there's a lot of information in there as well. And you're also very welcome to join the Scottish Transitions Forum. It's free to join. That will keep you up to date with the stuff that we're doing, and also with the Parent and Carer Network that we're running, and what's happening with that, and how we're involving parents in the work that we're doing. So the last few things, this is very quick. As I say, you'll get these when you get the slides, but this is the website I was talking about tomorrow. That's what it looks like. There's also information about education. If education is where you want to, your young person thinking about going, doesn't have to be straight after school. It could be coming back into education in the early 20s or even later. And there's lots of different ways of accessing that through open learning at home. Doesn't have to be in a formal learning setting. Leeds Scotland have got a lot of information that can help with that. Skills Development Scotland, if you're thinking about employment opportunities or skills, well, skills development, it's in the name, but things that might not lead you straight into a job now, but might help prepare you to develop some of those skills that will help you find work. Anybody can go to Skills Development Scotland. You don't have to go through school. You can contact the Skills Development Scotland office in your area. Every area has one, and you can make an appointment as a parent and carer just to have a chat with them about what's possible and what they can offer, and also what's available locally. Researching local options, there's some ideas there of places to look for things that people might be able to do. Volunteering, going through Volunteer Scotland or volunteering organisations, that's a really good way of developing skills if someone's not ready for work or they're not ready for education, but just needs something to build their day around. Or something to, you know, sort of, if they've got a particular interest, that they could go and try and, you know, sort of find volunteering opportunities around that. There are plenty of places you can go to try and organise that. And I know some people who've done fantastic work through that, actually. Help with developing skills and trying new things. ILF Scotland, if you haven't heard of the Transitions Fund, this is a fantastic way to help young people try something new. Again, it might be learning a new skill, or it might be trying to, it could be something like travel training, for example, if they can't travel independently, employing someone to work with them one-to-one to be able to learn to use the bus, public transport, trains, whatever they might need to do. You can apply for money for that. You can apply for money for equipment if it's something that the young woman who's there in the photograph is doing dressmaking. So, you know, she applied for equipment for a sewing machine and for thread and all of this kind of thing, to be able to learn how to make dresses. And she's now running a small, it's a very small business. It's not, you know, it's not kind of a huge turnover or anything, but she is doing something that is actually, she's able to sell the stuff that she creates through her website. You know, so there's ways of getting help with exploring new ideas and so on for a young person. And then safeguarding, this is just some useful links around guardianship, powers of attorney, understanding what's involved in that. This is some links around money, Social Security Scotland, Citizens Advice Bureau, where to get advice and help around that as well. And then this is just to make you aware of an app that the Scottish Commission for Learning Disabilities has produced, which is around using your rights. And I think, you know, rights can sometimes be thought of as a bit of a dirty word, but it's useful to know what your rights are and to have them in your back pocket, so that if something's working as it should, that's fine. If it's not, it's quite useful just to actually know, you know, where you stand with that and how to exercise your rights. So we've got a webinar on that as well, but there's also an app there that makes it a little bit easier to understand. So those are our contact details. You know, you're very welcome to get in touch at any point. And I'm happy to, I know that's a very whistle-stop tour. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen there. It's a whistle-stop tour, but I hope it's given you an idea of the kind of work that we do, the kind of information and so on that we can offer. And, you know, you're very welcome to get in touch. We've got 20-25 minutes, I think, now to just go, if anyone wants to pick up on any of that or share anything that's important to you right now. And as I say, if I can answer the questions, I will. If I can't, I'll go away and try and find the information.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That's brilliant. And what I will do is Tracy's slides and our presentation, I'll share on our Facebook group and to our mailing list. So if anyone's, I think you all are involved in that, but if you're not, let me know and I'll make sure that you do get that information. And I'll share that around and all those details will be there. But that's fantastic, Tracy. Thank you so much for that. I always feel as if I learned something new as well. So one of the questions actually we had already had on our Facebook group was about the app, the Compass. Did you? Yeah.
Yes.
So it was when could people expect that to be live? So that's brilliant. I can go back and let them know that it's maybe a month or two yet. But I'm guessing you'll keep us updated with that.
We will definitely keep you updated with that. Yes. Like I say, unfortunately, it's out. Actually, just going with the launch of that, it's out of our control because we're waiting for the green light from the people who funded it.
Yeah.
It's all there. It's ready to go. And as soon as we get that green light, then it will be available to people across Scotland.
Brilliant.
And we're planning a launch, so hopefully, and there'll be social media activity and stuff around it as well. So hopefully you won't be able to miss it with a bit of luck.
We'll keep our eyes peeled. We'll keep our eyes peeled. But does anyone have any questions specifically for Tracy? If you don't feel comfortable sort of talking, because I know some people hate this, you know, this Zoom situation, please feel free to put anything in the chat box if you'd rather do it that way and I can read them out. But if you've got any questions, please just take yourself off of mute and go ahead. It's a really good opportunity to ask, you know, and find out. So if there's anybody got any questions, just let me know. If not, I'll ask some.
I know I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I'd just be really interested to get an idea of I have a feeling that I've met some of you before in other settings as well. But you know, what stage are you at? What's your situation? As I say, I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but if it's useful to me to get a feel for who's in the room, you know.
Go for it, Liz. It's lovely to see you. Yeah. How you doing?
You too, guys. Yeah. So I'm the kinship carer for Niven, who's 18, and he leaves school in June. So everything you talked about is really quite relevant to us at the moment. I'll try not to take too long to say this, but when Niven was 14, 15, that's when all the COVID stuff started. Mm-hmm. So the thing about being 14, 15, doing all the, like, all of a sudden, places stopped coming to the school for when they would leave school, these places that were going to be somewhere for our adults to go weren't visiting the school. So a lot of what we did has just been in the last year, but it's worked well. Because you talked about the agencies and the people that are responsible for transitioning our children, and Niven just happens to be a wee bit later now. He's 18 and he's 19 in November, so he managed to stay on school, so that was a little bit helpful as well for us. But certainly we've had the right help from social work and from the schools. We did do a lot of having a look at places ourselves. Some places just never got back to us, and other places were pretty successful. And we've got a bit of a dilemma because there's a couple of places that would love Niven to go. So Niven is limited verbally. He has autism and a learning disability. So you mentioned something about I have to save Niven from me because, he'll not be able to do this now, he'll not be able to do that, and he's never going to manage this. Another thing that's going on is that my husband and I aren't young anymore, and he's 18, and what is that going to look like when he's 28? And you know, we're proper pensioners by then.
Yeah.
So that's going on for us. But the actual process of things like going from child disability to adult disability payment, we did quite well with that. We had a right problem with not having a letter or some confirmation that Niven does still get that even when he was a child, because it stopped. But the transition from Scottish Social Security from child to adult, once we got somebody to come out and do it all for us, because the first thing they say on the phone is some proof, like a driving license or something, and I just feel like saying, excuse me, have you looked at the... So you feel like you're repeating yourself all the time. But I have to say that it's went okay.
Good.
But I have a problem because I'm his kinship carer, I'm his gran. The minute you mention I'm gran, it's, oh, we need to speak to mum and a bit, you know, you get a bit of that. So you're talking about guardianship and appointees and things like that. So I feel like sometimes I'm repeating myself, but all in all, it's been good. And you talked about ILF fund, it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you know, they're providing a lot of stuff for... I was chatting to somebody today. I phoned up the GP surgery for something, for a letter to prove that Niven Canny manages finances. Well, by the time it was finished, the woman on the phone, she was talking about her son and being 33, and I was saying, well, look, these forums that I go on to, she used to come on them before, but she stopped it. But I was like, well, you can still go on different forums and just sharing your experience. So the ILF fund went well, the adult disability thing, that went well. We had to go to the job centre for universal credit. Well, that was a laugh, not, you know, asking Niven to go to the job centre. He was completely ignored by the chap in the job centre. And then we had to go to another appointment, which he wasn't ignored, and that was nicer. So having somebody not look at your child, you know, you're very much like, really, and just sort of dismissed. But anyway, things like going to Social Security and having to fill out journals, and Niven couldn't do that. But so what's going on for us today is that Niven's no sure. He doesn't understand very much. He's very, very good with music but he doesn't understand life. So he goes to school tomorrow. I'm saying to him, you're going to Teens Plus at 10:30. So he's now pointing to his bag. I need my school bag. I didn't understand what you're saying. So how am I going at 10:30? But so he's really confused. And I just wish I could take him there myself and say, this is where we're going. So it's things like he has not got a clue what's happening. Do you know? So it's up to me and to get advice for other parents, to get some suggestions. Because we try and save them from ourselves. And I have got good self-care and things. I've got lovely people about me that help, and Niven thrives under all that as well. But again, we've got a couple of concerns about our age now and how that's going to look further down the line.
You do a brilliant job, Liz. You know, Liz comes regularly and is, you know, always taking in all these information sessions, and I know that you just do whatever you can to support Niven. So it sounds as if you're just... And you were saying there about him having some choices, you know, that's fantastic, because there's nothing better, I don't think, than having options. And that's, Tracy, you mentioned it before, the kind of obvious thing is that, well, you go to college and usually it's life skills, or, you know, that's the kind of obvious thing. And that's often people's only option. So to hear that Niven's actually got the choice of different things, and that actually you've got a wee bit of a dilemma because he's got a few things to choose from, I think that's brilliant, Tracy. I'm sure you think the same.
Absolutely. And Liz, I'm really pleased, because I'm trying to think when I saw you before, and I know I've seen you before on one of these sessions, and I can't remember quite which one it was, but I know I recognised you. But it's good to know that there's so many positives in there, you know. And I think there's always going to be things that you go, oh, for goodness sake, do I have to have this conversation again? You know, why are you not talking to each other? But over time, it's really important to sort of recognise the progress that's happening over time. We can lose sight of that, but there are good things that take place. And yeah, there's frustrations. There's always going to be frustrations, but do make time to go, well, actually, that went well, or that person was helpful. And just thinking about, you know, those things about options for after school. A lot of that can come down, very often it's around parents and carers being creative and thinking about, you know, what the young person might like to do. And there's one parent in the Parent and Carer Network that we run whose son he's now 21, he's just turned 21, but this was when he was still in school. And they said he's autistic from being, you know, a kid. His obsession was aeroplanes, always aeroplanes. And of course, when he was talking at school, he was in the special learning base and so on, and they were saying, what do you think you might like to do afterwards? Oh, well, he'd like to learn to fly. Oh yeah, sure, he'd like to learn to fly. You know, he's autistic, he's never going to be able to fly, forget that. And the parent thought, well, is that the case though? Is it really the case? And she got money through ILF for this, but picked up the phone, spoke to a local flying school. This is just outside Inverness, and said, you know, just because my son's got autism, gave him, you know, the sort of profile and everything, and said, is there any intrinsic reason why he shouldn't have flying lessons? And they went, well, bring him along, you know, we'll have a look at him, we'll have a chat to him. And autism itself shouldn't get in the way as long as we think he's safe in the air with somebody with him. So with money from ILF, he's now getting flying lessons, and he's doing really well. And this is a young man who the school had said, you know, they stopped teaching him maths because he wasn't getting maths at all. But if you ask him to calculate things like, you know, air pressure and fuel consumption and how long a journey is going to last and all of it, he can do that maths. He can do that fine. And that's all that the flying school was interested in. You know, is he going to be safe to do that? So as it stands at the moment, he's not quite there yet, but there is every possibility if he can pass a medical, and at the moment he's stuck because he doesn't like doctors and he doesn't like going to the GP. But if they can get him through a medical, he will be able to take his private pilot's license, which, you know, is just amazing. And you think that to me just says, you know, if you listen to what people tell you are the limits, don't be afraid to kind of go, well, is that
challenge
really
that? Yeah,
you know, challenge it a little bit, or just go, well, that's fine, that's what you think, I'm just going to explore that for myself and see if that's true or not. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I think that's a really inspiring story. He's a lovely young man.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Just to finish on, so Teens Plus is part of an education thing as well. There's a bit of education. Niven he's got the learning of a P1 and he's 18. So it's a bit of education, but the other place that wants to give him a place is Orcadia, and they deal with music. So he's going to go a few days there and a few days there, and ILF are funding a new guitar for Niven. I was like, what? Guitar lessons and music lessons, singing lessons, and that's all. Brilliant. So I want him to go there and there, because he's not going to sit somewhere that's just mundane every day, but he's not going to be at music every day either. So it's trying to really get the balance. But yeah, there's a lot of positives, and he's in the festival, the Fringe, he busks, and yet he can hardly put two words together. It's just brilliant. So for anybody, you're right, you know, just whatever they've got a choice, whatever they like doing, just go for it. So that's enough from me.
Yeah. No, I think I was just going to say it's so true though, because when you're told by experts, you know, I do this, but experts and professionals and people that you know sort of are you know you trust and you listen to, that, well, Niven's not going to be able to do that, or you know whoever's not going to be able to do this. There is that sort of part of you that probably does take that on board a little bit and thinks, oh well, maybe that's right. But I think that's so true, Tracy, is that challenge the limits and you know push that a little bit, because that young guy that you're telling us about who may get his pilot's license, you know, his flying license, is incredible. So yeah, but no, Liz, it's brilliant news, and I think that sounds, you know, that I love music too, so it's brilliant. It's so nice to hear that he's going to be involved in things that he really loves. So brilliant, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any questions, or you know, as Tracy said, just a wee bit of information around where you're at, or you know, sort of positive, negative, you know, whatever that might be? Don't feel. Oh, I can see you're just coming up as iPad 3, so I don't want I don't want to sound as if I'm being rude. Your name's not there, so there should be a wee thing that asks you to unmute.
Yeah,
that's you.
That's it. I'm Anne, this is Ian, and we're permanent foster carers to our 16-year-old, nearly 17-year-old girl. We've had her since she was 5 months old, and we're now in the process of adopting her. So we've got a lot going on. and we've applied for guardianship. She is profoundly disabled, functioning about 2 to 6 months. She's completely blind as well. So hearing all these stories, and we're sitting here thinking, she couldn't do that. She couldn't do that. She couldn't do that. But we've had one meeting, transition meeting, and the transitional social worker said that she would be going to college. And I said, no, college will not be for her whatsoever. And she came across as being, well, I've done this job for 10 years. And that's what so we went ahead, and I said, college is not for her. You know, I said, she needs transitional changes frequently.
Position changes.
And transitional positional changes frequently. She's double incontinent, so she would need hoisted to get personal care. What college is going to be able to do all that? The school that she's at just now, to help her settle, she goes out on her trike. As soon as she arrives at school, they've got her trike set up. She goes round the garden on her trike, and that's her. She's fine. She'll go into school. Today, she had an appointment, and we took her back in. She went in. She can't cope with change, big changes. Obviously, because she's blind as well, I think that's really, really important that everybody takes that on board. She wasn't born blind. She doesn't have a look of being blind, and I think people forget that she is blind. So we've actually sought out the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice at Bellahouston. Actually has started a wellbeing hub for 16 to 39-year-olds, and she was assessed a few weeks ago and managed to secure a place on a Monday for 2 hours. She loves music, as in musical instruments. People always know her by shaking her tambourine. You know, they'll say, "Oh, here comes Chloe." So anyway, they do music with her. They do sensory massage with her. Everything's geared around her sensory issues, and she's loving it. She's there for 2 hours. My husband goes and has a coffee, and we're very, very wary of who she goes to, because she has all these issues. She can't tell us how she's feeling. Obviously, she's non-verbal as well. We use hand-on body signing with her. Her understanding of that, if she understands 3 or 4, that's good. But she doesn't respond very much to it. What she does respond well to is being outside in the sunshine. She loves being outside, the sunshine. So I've said all this to the transitional social worker and really the team that are now supporting us. And that's the route we're going down. You know, that there will be people employed to take her out. She loves out in all weathers. You know, it's not that she's, oh, it's raining, she can't go out. You know, she just loves everything about being outside. And the way we know that is because she laughs and she, you know, she smiles. So that's the route that I'm hoping that we'll be going down. And that's the route that we'll be fighting for, not college.
No.
The head of education at the school that she's at went to visit one of the 3 colleges that they suggested to us. And she said, "Anne, I'm absolutely with you. The college couldn't support her in any form at all. They couldn't have any of her equipment that she requires during the day. They couldn't even have a curriculum for her. There was just nothing that would have suited her." And I thought, that's one up to us.
And yeah, it is. And there's nothing, yeah, there really is nothing in the rule book that says that you can't do that. You don't
No.
have to take any of this information, you know, on board.
Well, I think this transitional worker, I think she has everybody kind of under the thumb, and this is set out in stone. And I thought, no, we're actually trying to keep her in the school for another year, because she lost a lot of education through ill health and surgeries and whatnot. And that's the route they're kind of going down to see if we can, if the council will pay for that extra year. Social workers said they won't pay for it, so it really needs to be education to say yes, you know, we'll cover it for another year. So
sometimes these things can just take longer to
Yeah.
so you because you have to go round that process and have those discussions and keep going back and keep
Yeah.
appealing and whatever. But you
Yeah.
know, a lot of people get there in the end,
Yeah,
and as long as you
yeah.
get what's right for Chloe at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
But
I
they-
was going to say, Anne, if you need any help with, we work quite closely with the Govan Law Centre, so Let's Talk ASN, and one of our educational law specialists. So they are real experts in really fighting for that extra time at school and all of that kind of thing. So it sounds as if you're doing brilliantly advocating for Chloe, but if you need anything, please just get in
Yeah.
touch and we can put you in touch with people. And you heard Tracy talking about ILF earlier, the Independent Living Fund, like Niven is using for music and all of that. That could maybe be an option for Chloe if you haven't already explored it.
For
But
us, just now, I remember speaking to somebody from the Family Fund,
Mhm.
and they said because we were foster carers, we wouldn't be entitled to use the Family Fund.
Right.
Right, but that's a different thing from
Yeah,
ILF.
ILF. Yeah.
So,
Family Fund,
yes, so that wouldn't
Yeah.
be the same.
it wouldn't be the same. No, ILF is for it's for the young person.
It's for Chloe.
You,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be for Chloe. So you would put forward that application on Chloe's behalf, although you would need to be careful to make it something that you know that she wants to do, not
Yeah.
something that.
And that's where the
Alright,
difficulty would
but-
be, because she doesn't have that capacity to let us know what she wants, really.
But you've already said she's you know that she likes music, and you
Yeah.
can tell that she likes being outside.
Yeah.
So there's two things there, you know, if there's a musical instrument, if it's maybe it's taking part in a music class or a music group. It could be if she likes being outside. I mean, I don't know Chloe, obviously, this is just
Yeah.
my head, but supposing it was something like gardening equipment, you know, seeds and stuff, so she can be outside and do gardening, something like that, you know. It's these kinds of things, and you can quite clearly demonstrate that although Chloe has not said I want to be a gardener,
No.
this is something that will bring her pleasure, and it's also something that will improve her skills and make her happy and help her to explore new things. And you know, all of those kind of things, that's what the ILF fund is there for.
Yeah, it would be quite difficult, I think, because she has cerebral palsy as well and doesn't have the use of her right hand at all. And her left hand is basically what she wants to hold. So sometimes you have quite a fight with her, you know, if you want her to hold something or press something. I know they do gardening in school, but it's the same with baking, you know. I actually had to say to the school one day, did Chloe get part in that baking session, because it wasn't written in the diary? I didn't see, she's not allowed photographs, obviously, but she was nowhere. The fact that it wasn't said in the diary that she took part in it, and I thought she could have been smelling it, she could have been touching the ingredients, all this thing. Sometimes I feel as though I have to fight for that all the time.
Yeah, and it does feel like a fight, and there's so many times that you think, well, you know, come on, surely you could just think a little bit out of the box. It's not rocket science to include Chloe in this.
Yeah.
See how she could...
And we thought she'd rather be out in her trike, they said at the time. I said, well, could her trike not have incorporated going in to the baking room where the baking was going on, for her to smell things? Yeah, we'll do that. That was easy for
It's worth a try. It's worth a try.
I think the ILF are also really good. We've had ILF along to one of the sessions, so they are also really, really brilliant at helping you come up with things. They're really open to discussions about, you know, what might work for Chloe. They've got their person-centered
Planning
planning
grant.
stuff as well. So they are really, really good at thinking outside the box, being quite
Yeah.
creative. And I think hearing about the social worker, the transitional worker that thinks she knows best, and for lots of people that will have been the route, and that will have probably worked really well. And I always think that I don't want to sound as if we're demonizing college or anything, because we're really not.
No.
But one size doesn't fit all, and that's the issue. So it may well have worked for lots of people that she supported in her 10 years of the job. It might not work for Chloe.
It does, I think, also illustrate that that there is this route. There's nothing to say that you have to go down that route, but you probably then are going to have to be a bit creative about what you come up with as an alternative.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you can't really just go back and say, well, no, we're not doing college.
Yes.
Find something
Okay.
else, because the chances are that's not.
She
going
does
to
rebound therapy. We do that privately. She does music therapy. We do that privately. When we can get it, she does carriage driving, and I'm struggling actually to get somebody to take her out now on the carriage driving. We went to a farm for this, and it was, she just loves it because of the horse, the clicking of the horse, the movement over the bumps, and she just adored it. She just smiled the whole time. But that was it. And I've looked, RDA, they don't do carriage driving, they do everything but carriage driving. So it's a difficult one, but like that, if they could come up with somewhere where we could take her, or that could be part of our inclusion, part of our week. That's the sort of thing.
They come up with all, and the other thing is they've worked with so many young people that when we've had Lee along from ILF, he's come along and told us about various obscure wonderful things that young people have done with the fund. So it may well be, Anne, that he knows exactly where to go for the carriage riding, or so it's definitely worth a try. But I will put all those links that Tracy shared with us. Was it yourselves that emailed earlier today asking for the details?
Yes.
If I will add you in. We've got a little mailing list. I will add you into that, and you just get told about sessions like this and useful things. There's no obligation for you to come every time or anything like that. Just if it's a topic that's helpful to you guys, then you're more than welcome.
We're involved in PAMIS,
right?
And PAMIS do a lot of really good work as well.
Yeah. There's so many good people out there.
Yeah. Do you know anybody from PAMIS at all?
Yes.
We've done quite a lot of work with PAMIS.
Yes.
We've done quite a lot of work with PAMIS.
They're
a very good organisation, actually.
Yeah.
Roseanne, I'm aware that you've had your hand up for a very long time. You've been so patient.
Hi,
Rose.
Hiya. I'm used to the Zoom, so I just wanted to see where we are. But in relation to what has been said about the Independent Living Fund, I would suggest you go on and make your account. It's very, very easy. And it gives you suggestions, so much so that our son has just graduated from high school, with 131 people.
Wow.
Off to college. He was given his award ceremony. He took part in it, which is obviously, we've had a transitional officer from our local authority, which is a lot better. That's in between the social work and the school. But our son's also had an extra year at school as well. Jack's doing fine. He's looking forward to college. We're doing the transitional period, and that's very much there. Everything so far is all going to plan, and we had met through the Zoom Independent Living Fund. And when I made an online inquiry, there's 2 areas of interest that are interested Jack. He's more into computer gaming, that sort of thing. He's actually quite good at it, actually. And strangely, which is not really for an artistic young man, he enjoys skiing. So we pay privately for one-to-one tuition for him. Through the Independent Living Fund, he's been awarded tablet for college.
Brilliant.
That took us no more than 10 minutes to get that.
Fantastic.
we just put in what our requirements came, and because we weren't asking for a big pot of money, it came back saying that they had money aside for IT technology, and these are the options, what we would like. 6 weeks later, everything arrived. So he's geared up for college with his new laptop, which to him means he's prepared for the next part of his education. And they are looking at his skiing instructor qualification. So there is instructor things that they can do. There's classes.
Yeah.
As far as the classes are concerned, if a young person does, it's to enhance whatever they want to do. So anything that they want to learn, if it enhances their knowledge or their ability, who says what their ability is, doesn't come into it. They don't ask you that. They just ask you questions about the young person. And all it is putting an application in, and obviously as foster parents, you're allowed to do that. There's no problem, but it's all online, and they're great. They come back with suggestions and help, but it's one of those funds that if you don't apply, you don't know.
No, exactly.
And they very much tell people to apply and to create your account, because you will have it for, if a young person's only 18, you'll have it for what, 25, 30, they'll have it for 10 years. But no, Jack's doing fine. Everything's going, so far, everything's going to plan. So we're at the end of our school education, which when he was 5 and starting school, if I thought I'd have been here, I wouldn't have thought so, because it hasn't all went smoothly. This part at the moment is, but obviously it's been a case. But the biggest hurdle we crossed was allowing them to stay in school.
Well, that's what I feel we're going through just now. The educational psychologist, she's on sides with us. The school have the capacity to take her, and we actually wrote a big profile, because we live 5 minutes from our school, and to get that extra year would make such a difference.
Actually, in our part, it actually came down to it wasn't even education, wasn't education psychologist, it was those who pay the money. That's what it came down to. We had the backing. We've always had a really good education psychologist. We've never had any problem. Our son was in a supported unit with mainstream school access, but it was all down to budget. And when it was awarded, it was it was like, yeah, he's got it. You're like, but nobody wants to tell you you've been worried about it. It was very much a case of, no, he doesn't finish in June. He's continuing. And you're like, when are we going to be told? So, there can be sometimes a wee bit lapse about that, that you've worried and you've put through all the strain, and it's just, yeah, not a problem. But I just wanted to share that.
No, it's so lovely. You've joined us for quite a while now, haven't you? And I know that things haven't always been, smooth, and so it's brilliant. It's actually lovely, because everything we have heard has been really, really positive, and I know there may be other people on the call that's not the case. So we're under no illusion that there's not issues, because we know, and Tracy, you'll be the same. We get calls saying my young person's not had any transition, they've been refused a transition, or that nothing's been put in place. So we know, but it's just when it works, here's the proof that it really works, and it can make it can be life-changing for young people. So but Anne and Ian, I think you said, wasn't it? Please, this is, as well as the likes of Tracy, who we invite on, and myself, I always feel like the group learns more from each other, from sharing experiences, and if anything, it just, you're not on your own. There's so many people going through this same thing. So, but it's brilliant, and I hope that makes you feel a wee bit more positive about things, because I just feel the sky's the limit for these young people. So and I think it's about pushing and challenging those limits.
I think the issue we will have is actually getting carers. She's talking about 4 carers for Chloe, and I think they'll struggle, because we've not got any carers for Chloe. We had a carer through Sense, and she was letting us down so often that we had to let her go, giving us half an hour notice. She didn't have childcare, she had a sore back, and all we wanted, we had 3 hours once a fortnight, and that was to take her out. And all we wanted was for her to walk up to our school garden, let her have a shot in the garden and walk back. And we're struggling we can't get anybody.
Right. I know it's a nightmare. And similarly to transitions with education or anything like that, it's the same principles really when looking at a care package or care planning or anything like that. It's, you know, it's making sure that Chloe's supported by the right people at the right times and at times that suits her and you guys, and you know, so interestingly enough, this month our theme on Family Connect has been transitions, which is why we've got lovely Tracy with us. For May it is self-directed support, so that may be of interest to some of you. You know, the two kind of go together very nicely, I think. So it's part of that bigger picture and looking at somebody's whole life. But yeah, so if there's something useful there, guys, then you know. And as I say, if there's any issues or you would like us to put you in touch with anyone in regards to staying at school that wee bit longer, then just drop us an email on the same email address, and we can put you in touch with some brilliant people, because there is brilliant help out there. It's just nobody tells you about it, and you have to go find it yourself, and everything's a fight. And
everything. She had a gastrostomy the same day as she had hip surgery, and we were dealing with 2 different departments. Oh, we don't supply that. They supply that. Oh, you have to go to this one. Oh, you go to that one. We were all over the place at that time, learning how to work a gastrostomy successfully, and also dealing with a spica cast. So that was a time where it was really quite stressful. If it was all coordinated to the one person, makes life
a wee bit of communication goes a long way, doesn't it? I always, you know, I quite often will go to meetings with people and advocate for some of our members and things. And I think, you know, I'm not a miracle worker by any means, but a wee bit of communicating.
That's all it is. It's lack of communication. Even meetings, you know, oh, I didn't get an invite to that meeting. Oh, why not?
I know. It's a nightmare, but you all do, I say it all the time, you all do just a brilliant job. And, you know, all the young people that we've heard about are just lucky to have you guys. So just keep on going.
Thank you.
And if there's anything
the services are lucky that you're doing the jobs that you're doing as well.
Exactly.
So never ever feel. I don't think it's true of the people on this call, but never ever feel that you're just a parent or just a carer. There's no just about it. You're doing an amazing job.
And I always say to people, actually, we think of the professionals, the teachers, the health experts as the experts, but you know, those of you who come regularly to the sessions, you guys are the experts when it comes to your young people, the people you care for. So it really should be you guys that we're all listening to. You know them far better than everybody else. So, but yes, it's been lovely. Is there anything else for Tracy before we let her go? I'm just conscious of time and not keeping her much later. But if there's anything, I know Tracy will be more than happy to answer anything. If you want to come through me, I'll pass any questions on, and I will share around the slides that have all your contact details and everything, Tracy, anyway. But if there's anything else, just let us know if anything crops up. And as I said, Anne, Ian, if there's anything further about the education stuff, just get in touch and we can put you in touch with some great people. All right. It was lovely to see you all, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me. It's a lovely way to spend a Thursday evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great, and it's lovely to see all of you. Thank you for joining us. And as I said, next month our theme will be self-directed support. So our live session is always the last Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock with the same joining details. But in between times, we will put out recorded sessions and just hopefully some useful information for you all. So just keep your eyes peeled, and we'll send out bits and pieces. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Everyone. Thanks again, Tracy.
Bye. Bye.